Greetings from San Diego, California. This interactive multinational teleconference is reaching you live in English and Spanish through a unique and complex international telecommunications network via satellite, microwave, and cable. This program brings together distinguished institutions representing education, business, and government in more than a dozen countries in Americas and Europe. We look forward to hearing from you. This is the 6th International Training Center video conference of this year, 2003 series entitled Strategies for Competitive Performance. I'm Dr. Farhad Saba, Professor of Educational Technology at San Diego State University and the moderator of today's program. Much has been written about and published on the phenomenon of technology-mediated distance collaboration and teamwork based on the latest advances in information technologies and telecommunications. The surge of networked organizations is quickly expanding across industries and around the world. These organizations integrate supply and demand chains, and they are led by virtual teams. The new work environment is only limited by the rigidities of e-technology and its impersonal nature. Human protocols and competencies designed to maximize collaborative effectiveness in distance activities and networked interactions is thus becoming a strategic element for success and productivity in these organizations. Team leadership, trust, and commitment require managers and workers in this decentralized environment to continuously interact, delegate, empower, and create innovation at all decision-making needs of the productive network they represent. This unique video conference will discuss the hows of creating this new human competence needed to successfully collaborate and lead within the new networked organization. The invited speakers will review the types of technologies appropriate for different distance activity applications and will propose specific human capacity building formulas useful for any organization or community of interest migrating to a technology-based networked environment. This program consists of 2 modules. In Module 1, Dr. Kenneth M. Golden will speak about human competence in virtual teams and networked collaborations. In Module 2, Dr. Lawrence C. Rhyne will discuss the current trends in organizations focusing on information and e-technology as a key factor in their competitive strategies and on how these organizations are creating value for their customers and stakeholders. As president of Golden Professional Corporation in Encinitas, California, Dr. Golden has been a management trainer and consultant for 20 years. He is also a visiting professor of management at Webster University in St. Louis and lectures at universities around the world, most recently returning from a 10-week tour in Thailand. His prior academic appointments include serving as an assistant dean at San Diego State University and an assistant professor at the University of Arkansas. Dr. Golden specializes in organizational development, change leadership, virtual team building, and stress management. He has worked with both public and private organizations and recently produced a series of videotape training programs entitled Stress in the Workplace, a Preventive Approach. Dr. Golden holds both a master's degree of social work and a doctorate in education from the University of Arkansas. Dr. Lawrence Rhyne is an associate professor of management here at San Diego State University. Dr. Rhyne teaches strategic management of technology and innovation, international strategic management, and international business strategy and integration in the undergraduate, graduate, and executive MBA programs, and recently received the Meritorious Performance and Professional Promise Award for his achievements. Dr. Rhyne specializes in effective strategies for companies in high technology and emerging industries in a global context. He's a member of the Academy of Management, the Strategic Management Society, and the Academy of International Business. Prior to joining the faculty at SDSU, Professor Rhyne taught at the J.L. Kellogg Graduate School of Management at Northwestern University and the Stewart School of Business Administration at Illinois Institute of Technology. In addition, he has significant corporate experience, most recently as manager of corporate planning for the Skill Corp in Chicago. Dr. Rhyne has published numerous articles in a variety of well-known journals in his field. He holds an MBA in finance from the University of Missouri and received his Ph.D. in business administration from Northwestern University. Welcome, gentlemen, and let me begin with a question. A recent article published in The Economist magazine indicated that spending on information technology in 1984 was 67% hardware and 33% database administration. In year 2000, the percentages turned around. Only 17% was spent on hardware and 83% was spent on database management. It is estimated that within a decade, 200 million IT workers will be supporting and assisting 1 billion people in enterprises connected via the internet, most of them working through virtual teams. These statistics confirm that network collaboration is exploding in education, business, and government. Will we all need to become IT experts? And what kind of human competence for acquisition and use of appropriate technology and for distance activity in general do we need to create in our organizations?
No, we don't all need to become IT experts. The field moves much too quickly for all of us to keep up with it. We will need experts within our organizations that can guide us and assist us. But we need to be able to use that technology and apply it to our tasks that we're performing in our various organizations.
With some division of labor required in the
Yes,
organization.
definitely.
Great. Dr. Golden.
I would certainly agree with Dr. Rhyne that no, we do not have to become IT experts, but I do believe that organizations will have to provide real support and real training for the end user of the technology.
Dr. Golden, Dr. Rhyne, thank you. And let's begin now with Module 1.
It is a great pleasure and honor to have been invited to speak with you about human competence in virtual teams and network collaboration. As corporations, governments, and educational institutions increase their global interest, information and communication technology has greatly expanded. It has become more important than ever that human competencies keep pace with technological advances. Virtual teams are groups of people assigned to work together on a job or project, even though they may be physically far apart. They may rarely see each other in person, but rather work together through the use of telephones, fax machines, electronic mail, video conferencing, and software called groupware. The principles I will discuss are also appropriate for more informal communities of interest. These are groups of individuals with a common interest who share ideas in an online network, but in a less task-oriented fashion than corporate or governmental virtual teams. What are the human dynamics that are critical to success in virtual teamwork? What attributes should we look for when selecting virtual team members? How do we motivate individuals to participate? How does a manager keep a virtual team member active and involved in the virtual team project? In the ETK model discussed in the past, we will be focusing on the 4 skill areas in the E network: communication, emotional, intellectual, and cultural competencies. Now, working in virtual teams poses unique challenges for the individual and the organization. Challenges different than those needed for working in a traditional office setting. I would like to first identify those human challenges. Secondly, I would like to discuss how to incorporate this understanding into an organization's selection, training, and reinforcement processes. First of all, these are the human characteristics of a successful virtual team member. Number 1, highly self-motivated and self-managed. Number 2, strong interpersonal awareness. Number 3, a high degree of credibility and trustworthiness. Number 4, sensitivity and cultural awareness. The first characteristic to look for when selecting a virtual team member is a person who is highly self-motivated and capable of self-management. Virtual team members must be able to function with a great degree of autonomy, far greater than is generally called for in the usual office setting. They often work independently and in relative isolation. They will not receive the ongoing encouragement or oversight of a supervisor or co-workers. Working on a virtual team often requires members to be their own supervisors, setting personal agendas and motivating themselves to take appropriate action. The ability to be a self-starter is critical for the virtual team member. The individual must be able to act as a self-managing team member by assuming accountability and leadership in his or her area of expertise, and by delivering quality products on time. Managing team members must be able to establish personal and professional priorities and goals, as well as prioritize their work. They may have to seek out relevant information and take the initiative to contact team members without managerial intervention. They will have to do this while overcoming the obstacles of time and distance. The virtual team member must have a high degree of intrinsic motivation. Clearly, extrinsic motivators such as financial rewards, status, promotions, and recognition are important to the virtual team member. But for the team member to function independently, they must also gain a high degree of satisfaction from rewards intrinsic to the task itself. Self-discipline needs to be internally derived rather than dependent upon the oversight of a supervisor. Intrinsic rewards include the pleasure derived from a job well done, and the challenge of working effectively in the uncharted waters of virtual team projects. Now, while time management skills are valuable competencies in any environment, they are indispensable in virtual work. Coordinating, communication, and workflow with a local and distant colleague requires a high degree of organization and time management. An out of sight, out of mind mentality will create havoc. Other team members are indeed out of sight, and if they are also out of mind, virtual teamwork will not be given priority by the worker. Priority will be given to tasks due to local colleagues and local teams, rather than requests from a distant virtual team member. The next characteristic of successful virtual team members is a high degree of interpersonal awareness. The virtual team member must be both a high-tech and a high-touch person. The team member must place a high value on technology, as well as on human interaction in problem solving. Depending on high technology solutions, without appreciation of human relations, will ultimately result in disappointing virtual performance. Communication in virtual teams has two challenges: sending information so the information is heard, and gathering feedback. Sending information virtually requires a special ability to communicate in an extremely clear and concise manner without emotional noise or interference. A high degree of personal awareness is needed. For instance, does the virtual team member unwittingly communicate fatigue, frustration, or annoyance in his or her message? Seeking and interpreting feedback presents another special communication challenge to virtual team members. In face-to-face meetings, members receive feedback in many ways, not only through the written or spoken word. In fact, more than 65% of our communication to another person is done through facial expressions, body language, and many other subtle nonverbal signals. In virtual teams, feedback based on visual cues may be hard to interpret or be non-existent. Virtual team members must be highly sensitive to signals sent by their teammates. They may have to take initiative to clarify misunderstandings or overcome communication language and cultural barriers. The virtual team member must be responsive to the needs of teammates. Virtual team members are highly dependent on one another. Without the social and practical ease of working together in proximity, they must anticipate the needs and reactions of teammates. Not responding in a timely manner to an emailed request for information can hold up a team member's ability to complete a task. A sense of responsibility for the success of the project and the effective functioning of the team will help the individual overcome the limitations of the media. The third characteristic that will contribute to success in a virtual environment is a high degree of personal credibility and trustworthiness. The virtual team member must be able to establish personal and professional credibility and trustworthiness very quickly without the benefit of face-to-face interaction. The old saying, "First impressions are lasting impressions," is particularly true in virtual teamwork. A poor introduction or beginning can damage team relationships. This damage can be hard to correct at a distance. Credibility includes honesty, integrity, and competence. The virtual team member must be able to demonstrate honesty and integrity with teammates. The team member must do what he or she says they are going to do. Agreements not followed through on, excuses, and inconsistency between word and deed can create an untrusting environment. Credibility involves professional competence as well. The individual must demonstrate that he or she can effectively and capably contribute to team performance. With resources limited to team members, Each individual must demonstrate the ability to contribute to the common task. Social loafing, or sitting on the sidelines while others do the work, is common in office team projects. It is immediately visible and resented by virtual team members. One cannot divorce the ability to establish personal trust among individuals from the culture or atmosphere of the organization. An organizational culture based on high interpersonal trust will be supportive of innovation, initiative, and risk-taking. This is critical to the success of new ventures such as virtual teams. An organization with low trust, characterized by recrimination, suspicion, competitiveness, and jealousy, will make establishing trusting relationships at a distance extremely difficult. The last characteristic is a high degree of cultural sensitivity and awareness. Among the greatest challenges to the effectiveness of virtual teams are cultural differences between distant team members. Now, cultures vary not only nationally, but also within regions of a country, between urban and rural sites, as well as between far-flung divisions of the very same organization itself. For instance, one Asian team member, because of his cultural heritage, avoided open criticism of others and their work. When he disagreed with his virtual teammates, he remained silent, so others in the controversy could save face. Over time, others on the team learned to interpret their Asian colleague's silence as respectful deference. They began to politely engage him in potential conflicts. Cultural sensitivity involves being aware of and overcoming built-in biases. Research has shown that when a supervisor from one culture appraises the performance of a subordinate from another culture, the accuracy of the appraisal is likely to be lower than if these individuals come from the same culture. People from different cultures have different ideas about what constitutes good performance. It is important that virtual team members be aware of this and other potential differences. Understanding one's own cultural frame of reference and how this may affect judgments or perceptions is important with so little personal interaction available. Cultural diversity in a virtual team can be a real competitive advantage. Virtual teams leverage the power of differences. They can outperform traditional teams that have members who are more similar in background and culture. I would next like to outline the organizational practices that will contribute to success in virtual teamwork. These are in the areas of selection, training, and reinforcement. The first area is selection. Team members should be selected based on the characteristics just outlined. In reality, of course, few individuals will be strong in all areas. Managers should therefore seek a balance on the team by ensuring that all 4 competency areas are represented. Individuals with specific strengths should be asked to provide leadership for the team in those areas. For instance, an individual who has a strong cultural sensitivity due to having lived or studied in another country can monitor the cultural traffic of the team. An individual with a high degree of credibility can be asked to be the functional team leader, seeing that relevant tasks are completed and deadlines met. A team member with a high degree of interpersonal awareness can be the team process leader, encouraging those who are not participating managing interpersonal conflicts, and so on. The next important practice involves training. Ongoing training should be geared to encouraging the professional development of team members. As virtual team members may not be located in corporate headquarters, special attention should be given to providing distance learning opportunities to them via television, teleconference, or online. Virtual team members are comfortable with the use of technology and will take advantage of non-traditional delivery of educational and training programs. Reinforcement is the last practice I would like to discuss. It is critical that organizations reinforce participation in virtual teamwork with appropriate reward structures. Functioning invisibly at a distance from corporate headquarters should not put the individual at risk for being overlooked for promotions or salary increases. Many organizations are compensating for the newness and difficulty of working in virtual teams by offering salary and educational incentives. Team members must also model and reinforce those behaviors that have proven effective in virtual teamwork. The team leader should outline norms or rules that will clarify acceptable behavior and facilitate communication. Specific guidelines for participation, communication, conflict resolution, meeting management, problem solving, and decision making require more attention than they do with teams that work in the same location. Over the years, we have evolved rules for conducting business face-to-face. They are so commonplace and accepted that they don't need to be stated. This is not the case for virtual teams. Expected behavior should be discussed, spelled out, and understood by all members. As I draw to a close, I would like to reiterate my objective: to focus on the human dynamics involved in successful virtual teamwork and their implementation in the workplace. It is only through the intelligent development of our human skills and abilities that we can make full and competent use of advances in information and communication technology.
Let's begin with the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that you ask only one question per phone call, and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax which appear on your screen. We remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. We have our first question from Medellin, Colombia. Please go ahead.
Buenos días.
From FENALCO, we are asking the following question. The culture of virtual teams is now a very important tool for organizations. But with this, we have high risks from lack of personal contact. That is, having a low sentiment of belonging to our organization, and also using human talent. How can we then use this along with technology? Thank you very much.
Can I answer? It's a wonderful question, actually. It's actually an excellent question. I think that you've almost answered your own question in terms of your awareness. The awareness that, in fact, you have created a different culture, a different environment, tells you that you need to involve workers more actively than you normally would in terms of making sure they are in the loop with increased communication, increased feedback, increased support, increased training. Do whatever you can to, with your awareness, to provide a culture, to develop that culture and a sense of belonging to a larger organization.
I think also as these teams are successful in projects and their contribution to the project is recognized, they then will develop that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And you need to ensure that everyone is recognized for their contributions.
We go to Sinaloa, Mexico for our next question. Please go ahead.
Buenos días. Sin duda la tecnología es irresistible, irreversible y rápida.
Technology is a fact. We can't turn back. How can we see if education can collaborate more with this type of network organization and deal with facts, for example, cost, that it changes so quickly, and be able to have a higher outreach? Thank you very much. How could we solve these problems?
There are 3 or 4 questions embedded in that, so
I think we need to recognize we need to start down that path. We need to begin working with the technology. We will not always be on the very cutting edge of it, but we will need to upgrade, recognize that we will not have a final solution, and it will be a period of upgrade. But we need to try to avoid constant upgrades without ever getting closure. And so in an incremental approach to that, or a series of changes?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Larry. This love affair with the technology and the latest and the newest, I think, is problematic. I think that you can do virtual teaming very successfully with telephone, email. I don't think that you need to be continuing upgrading. If you're focusing on the human element, you're focusing on the goal of the project, I think you can avoid some of the costs that people are committing to.
we go to Sabinas, Coahuila, Mexico. Please go ahead, please.
Sí, buenos